Welcome back, folks. No Dice Rise here, taking you through round 3 of the GTWS Manufacturers Cup at Atlanta. I was a big fan for this race because I love this track. I think it's a great track for overtakes from interesting moments, and definitely this is what initially came through in my initial lap, straight away into a penalty. Something I definitely wanted to avoid throughout the race, so this is the best time to get those out of the way. I felt as though the Nissan drove like a bus around here, so I thought the S's would be a challenge for sure. As you'll see in the race later on, a couple of people had some moments around the S's. Again, just practice makes perfect. This is what this is all about. Try to get some of those issues out of the way, and I could see 1:18 was probably going to be a regular time for me, but I definitely wanted to see sub 18. So let's see how I get on. I didn't think I'd go sub 18 that fast, especially within 5 laps, but I felt good about it. The car still felt a little bit awkward, as you can see. It went straight to my head, that 1:17.9, as I went off the track a few turns later. That would be probably the best time I was going to hit, and that felt like as good a time as ever to maybe bow out, as really I started to spin out, pushing my limits over the edge, and really not amounting to much more. I found, interestingly enough, that the soft tyres didn't seem to be as good as I thought they might have been. So I wanted to get a feel for the pit lane, get some changes done, and see how I was in mediums, as the upcoming race was expecting us to use both sets of tyres. As you can see, not doing too well in this time trial or practice round, getting a 3-second penalty entering the pit lane, something that obviously you want to avoid at any race, even qualifying. So as the penalty started to come in harder and faster, I was definitely looking to improve, but I don't think there was much improvement that could be made. That 1:17.9 was definitely the best time I could amount to. Even though I was going blue in different sectors, I really believe that was probably the best I could aim for. And as you can see, I clearly started to lose control around lap 15, aiming for the wall there on turn 1. Something we might see in the upcoming race. I did consider 1:17 fast, but it's always nice to be humbled by the top tier. V Gallo at 1:15, so 2 seconds away from him. That's good enough for me. So here we are jumping in. Again, just making sure the racing softs are on for qualification. Even though I probably felt honestly more comfortable in the mediums, I thought maybe it'll give me a little bit of an edge, a couple of seconds shaved here or there. But you guys enjoy, see how well I could do in qualification. I know everyone says this, but I thought I could have gone faster in qualifying, but ultimately it ended in a bit of a disgrace there, really running into my last lap with a bad penalty. So I kind of threw caution to the wind and just said, well, that's all I could get. The important thing for this race is obviously changing tyres. I thought probably best was to get as far as I could on the racing softs, catch up, on the initial starting pack, who qualified very well there. Racing Turtle, almost getting to sub 17. So I knew they were fast, and if I didn't get as close to them towards the start, I may never see them towards the end of the race. So I thought start out fast and then, save my tyres and end hopefully without finishing in the sand pits or outside of the barriers. Well, here we are, ready to kick off. My main plan was literally save the front tyres, because this was already a bit of a bus and a handful turning into the corners. So I thought, okay, the best I could do was put the brake bias to the rear, burn out the back tyres at least a little bit more than the front, and hopefully I'd be able to turn and avoid going off the track. Enjoy this one, as this one was messy. Well, we managed to survive the S's in the first few turns and corners with some bumps and grinds against a couple of people there. Tony coming off worse for wear, and obviously Paga there seemed to be having some connectivity issues. It seemed like that was the case anyway. But this one again was tough. I think the S's, I was doing my best to make sure that they remained clean, and obviously I remained challenger to those ahead of us, because I felt like, they weren't actually that fast. So I got the sense maybe I was the only one here of this pack that had soft tyres, as I seemed to be much more in control. As you can see there, some other people were going off a little bit wide. Here we are with some connectivity or connections with the McLaren here, ultimately pushing us off. I don't think it was truly intentional. I think he might have still had some dirty tyres as we bump once more going onto the main straight. But we were going up, we were challenging, raising 2 positions already. I was feeling good on the back of lap 3, setting a 120, which I thought was actually quite good, considering there was a lot of battling going on and people spinning off. I was shocked, probably as you guys are too, seeing as how badly I qualified and my time trial practice. But here I was on lap 4 in position 6, so we raised 4 positions, and I was doing all I could to maintain this position. As you know, some of the guys here were pretty fast, as you can see from their qualifying positions. But I was surprised here. Here I was pushing in on lap position 5 behind Steve here. While I think it went to my head, I started to look behind me and unfortunately forgot to turn. So I took a little stint into the sand, and thankfully I did hit the sand, because I think that slowed me up enough to avoid contact with the wall there. I dropped a couple of positions, but thought, okay, no damage to the car or the engine. Tyres are a little dirty, but I knew we were quick and I knew we could catch. And people were still making mistakes going off through the S's, so all I had to do was keep my head on straight and ensure I, race my own race without making contact with others. Here we are on lap 6, taking advantage of Joe's 0.5 penalty there, with Marcos coming up very fast in the Corvette. I thought I might be able to outbrake him. As you can see here, it wasn't to be the case. Once more, I ended up in the sand from my own stupidity, really. I should have kept my head a little bit better and maybe let Marcos overtake me and then allow him to speed ahead. But you live and learn. As I really started to settle into the race at lap 9, I felt as though I could catch up on Joe Senna. Great name, by the way, Joe Senna. I was still confident through the S's. You could still see some people were shaky there as we come up here with a yellow flag towards Marcos. Again, just the S's were quite challenging for some. I think, again, these were on racing mediums, and they weren't really supportive through the S's, it seemed, for a lot of racers. But as we came in towards, laps 10 and 11, I was definitely gaining on Joe. We went down from 3 seconds to now a second and a half, finishing up on lap 10. Taking us into lap 11, there was a second and a half between us. And I was always saying lap 12 would more than likely be the lap I was going to pit on. And you could see, according to my tyres, that was probably a good idea, or it could have easily been lap 11 as well. But I really caught up towards lap 12 there. You could see it was under a second now towards Joe. Who was on mediums, and probably were doing okay, and he was really settling into his own pace, but getting at least a second between us I thought was a positive. And then coming towards the end of lap 12, you could see my car or bus was really struggling to take any corners towards the end. So I thought, okay, it's pit time, let's get on to the mediums, protect our tyres, and see if we could do better than maybe position 7 or 6 if we were lucky enough towards the end of the race. So I was clearly in dreamland, considering top 5 potentials, especially with taking that penalty, which again, I clearly didn't learn my lesson from qualifications or from the time trials beforehand. As I start to relinquish another position here to UA Racing, it just didn't seem to be my day. I tried to get out of my own head here and just say, settle. I thought I had a good pace, and it didn't take too long until we jump here to obviously lap 18. When I started to again catch up on everyone else who had mediums. They were probably dying a death, and I seemed to have caught up on a couple of packs again. So I really just wanted to settle down, save the tyres as much as possible to see what kind of advantage I could gain down the line. Lap 20 seemed to be a pit-in stop for a good few folks who had obviously stressed their mediums. Marcos was going in for his third stint there in the pit lane, and obviously me looking at who was going into the pit lane had me coming off the track, As you can see, my facials highlighting I wasn't too pleased with my lines there. But we were doing okay. The race did seem to get away from us though. I was delighted to pull away from Marcos and team. And then we saw an old frenemy here in RRM. They seemed to bite the dust there on turn 1, as we did ourselves in time trial and practice. So again, it happens to the best of us. But Joe really was able to keep away from us. I think we could only get down to about 5.5 seconds towards the end of the race. But I was happy to settle in at 7th position in spite of everything that happened. I think Racing Turtle did a phenomenal job though. 37 minutes overall. I think they were extremely fast throughout and they were deserving winners. Let's take a stop for a moment and reflect on some of those flashpoint moments throughout that interesting race. This was so bad I thought we'd revisit it again. Again, I sort of spooked myself out of the racing line there, not taking the turn. Nothing against UA Racing or STI, I think that was purely my own mistake. And another mistake of mine to revisit. I probably should have sat in behind Marcos here, allowing him to take this corner. I got that drag from Joe, which gave me a little boost. I thought maybe I have the confidence to take through this corner, but I missed my braking line. Completely my fault, and again turned my race upside down. This was the close call with Marcos. Again, I think he ghosted just at the right moment, but had he not, I think that probably would have unraveled my P7 because I think he would have clipped me perfectly, and I don't think there would have been a lot I could do to control the car. Still surprised I got P7 at the end of this one, but there was a lot of mistakes that could have been avoided, especially this pit lane entry. A few millimeters over there, but ultimately damage is done. Hopefully lesson learned, but we're only human. This is what happened to RRM here. I don't exactly know. It seemed as though steering, or at least the wheel maybe they were using, died or had a moment, because they couldn't really get themselves out of trouble there on what seemingly was an easy enough curve or turn at turn 1. Thankfully, as they rejoined the track, they didn't connect with us, which I was worried about when I saw them, and I got that yellow flag warning, but thankfully I was able to cruise by. On board here with Racing Turtle, they got one penalty. It's all really throughout the race, a perfect race otherwise. As we look through the rest of the field, you can see there was such a change at lap 8 with regards to who was using softs and who was actually using mediums, and you could see the difference between both was quite dramatic. Those in soft really were losing most traction towards the end of lap 9 or 10, while mediums were kind of warming into the race. But it was a P7 overall. Everyone will always say they could have done better, and I really do believe I could have, but if I only got out of my own way. I was happy at least to see the driver rating remain high, and sportsmanship rating didn't get a negative as well. So it was a good one. Lots of flash points, lots of interesting racing. Again, I don't think it was a dirty race. I think there was just some racing contact, that was all. It's a racing incident at the best of times. I don't think there was any dirty intentional collisions there or bumping going on. Otherwise, very clean race. I think the top at least 8 or 10 had a good race, were clean enough, and were only racing as best as they could. Good race, lessons learned. Stay on the track, folks. Chat to you again sometime soon.